Go, 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 go.
3, 2, 1, 4 tires.
Still there, inside.
What a jump! What a jump!
The track is wet. It's good.
Still there, clear.
3, 2, 1. Green flag, green flag.
Hey everyone, I'm Dom Capilupo from Jackson, New Jersey.
Sam Dooley from Troy, Alabama.
Steve Ray from Twin Cities, Minnesota.
And Wesley Riddle from Raleigh, North Carolina.
And we're back for the second episode this year on the Foreign Fuel Podcast. Happy to be back, getting ready. I think now we're going to hit our stride. Normal week here. Some good racing in Michigan. Can't wait to talk about it. How's everyone else doing today?
Good. A little bit tired. I had a big life change. Obviously, you guys know, but had the birth of my first kid, little boy. So another NASCAR fan has been born into the world. So really excited about that and excited to share the great world of NASCAR with him. So, but a little bit tired. It's been a long few days.
Now, can we expect a future racer here?
I hope so. I am extremely broke and poor, so if anybody out there would like to, like my friends over at Busch Light, non-sponsored shout out to them if they'd like to, help out. Absolutely, I'd be all game for it.
No, that's awesome to see. Can't wait to down the line here. We're gonna get good old Harrison on the podcast here.
Yep, one of these days we will.
But right now, it's best that he doesn't make his entrance on a podcast. As long as he doesn't make his presence known right now, we're good to record.
Hopefully, no dirty diapers come flying through the screen. That's the last thing that we need right now.
Now, Wes, we know obviously you made the transition down to Raleigh. So, get a little more into that. What made you go down to Raleigh and leave the good old lover state of Virginia?
That's true. I know I introduced myself as being in or from Raleigh when really I'm from Virginia. So I moved down here, started a new job about 2.5 months ago. It's been awesome so far. First experience living on my own, trying to pay rent, trying to get by, make good money, be happy. So it's all working out. And plus, on top of it all, we brought the podcast back. So it's definitely, definitely onward and upward from here.
I mean, that's definitely the biggest part of moving to Raleigh was getting the Foreign Fuel Podcast back up and going. I think that's the main reason why you did it.
Oh, 100%. I mean, I had to tell every single person at my job that my priority number one wasn't them. It was this. And they understood. They said it's okay. So I have tomorrow off very conveniently because we're recording so late tonight.
And then now we have one person left still in college. Little young kid over here.
Yeah, I'm still making my way through, still pursuing my broadcast journalism dreams here in the great city of Troy, Alabama. I just got a new job helping with the broadcasting over here for our sports. So hopefully, once I graduate, I can get something, a job in the business, as they would say, in NASCAR, hopefully. But that's a little ways away right now.
Well, don't you worry. I'm sure SiriusXM NASCAR is going to need some overnight program, and it's going to be us.
Yes.
We're going to take the overnight shift, like midnight till 7 a.m. for the morning drive. It's going to be all the Foreign Fuel.
Sounds good to me.
Hey, they might need it.
Yeah, they're going to get sick and tired of running the Claire B. Lang reruns all night overnight. So it's going to be us. Don't worry.
You'll hear us soon. SiriusXM channel 90 is where you'll find us. Hopefully one day.
That is the goal. But speaking of goals, the goal here is to make the podcast as viewer friendly as possible. And I figured with that, we introduce a new segment, and we're just going to jump into these headlines. This segment's going to be called the money stop of the week. Each of us is going to pull a headline from the week, whether it's from the race or news from the previous week. And I'm going to get it started this week. My money stop is actually in pit road. Tyler Reddick, his pit crew absolutely cost him the race at the end on the final stop. They had Chris Buescher beat off pit road, and really the way that finish played out, if Chris Buescher is in second to Tyler Reddick, I'm fairly certain Tyler Reddick wins this race. And the frustrations boiled over. Tyler Reddick doesn't seem to get mad at the team. You really hardly ever see that. It's really him beating himself up. But this time he went off on his pit crew, and you can't blame him. Really just pouring over from last week. I know Tyler made the mistake last week, but 2 weeks in a row where Tyler Reddick had a chance to win and just nothing to show for it. Absolutely nothing to show for it. And these things can't keep happening. If this team's going to make it anywhere deep into the playoffs, which they can, they have the speed to do it. They just can't keep messing up on pit road. They're just shooting themselves in the foot, and this is getting absurd. At what point do big changes get made very quickly? Because I know the goal at 2311 has always been a 5-year window to be championship ready. Well, with Tyler Reddick in that 45 car, you can be championship ready as early as like right now. He has the speed to win these races, and just that whole team needs to put it together. The execution is horrible. It's not even decent. It's horrible. And they just need to put it together. And once they do that, they're going to be a top threat. They're going to be right up there with the 11 and the 19 in the Toyota camp. I mean, they have the speed to do it. It's just the execution. And man, the frustrations for that team, and it's just something needs to change.
Yeah, I completely agree. Like what we talked about last week with 2311, putting together a complete race. And I said it last week. I said the 45 team and the 23 team, but the 45 team has cost themselves numerous races, this week being one of them. My money stop of the week is another big headline that dominated most of the days leading up to Michigan, the Noah Gragson controversy. Him liking an insensitive meme about George Floyd. Whether it doesn't matter when that meme was posted, whether it was recently, whether it was years ago. When you put on that fire suit, you are a representative of not only your team but your sponsors, and yourself. You're representing multiple brands, including your own. So whether you think that it's funny or not, and it's really was not funny by any means. Someone's life was taken from it, and I don't want to get political with this here. But when you put on that fire suit, we're talking about a team that's owned by Richard Petty and Jimmy Johnson and Maury Gallagher, big sponsors, Wendy's. I could go on and on about Chevrolet. Do I think that Noah can rebound from this? I hope so. And I think that he can, but like I was listening to one of our favorite podcasts, Door Bumper Clear, earlier, and they were bringing that up too, is, it's really up to the sponsors, the manufacturer. If somebody re-signs Noah Gragson, he's going to have all of that previous baggage with him, and they got to decide, does this person fit our model? So Noah, I mean, take driving talent aside, because Noah's extremely talented as a race car driver, but you got to think about, it's when you're a NASCAR driver or anywhere in the industry, it's not only the talent that you have on the track, but it's who you are off the track. And we know that Noah's a great guy, funny guy, but doing stuff like this, I mean, it can really detriment your career for a long time. We saw it a couple of years ago with Kyle Larson, what he went through, eventually coming back with Hendrick, won a championship. So I'm not saying that will happen with Gragson, but these are just the things that come along with these things, and things you got to think about. Now, what does that mean for the 42 team at Legacy? Well, Mike Rockenfeller will be in for the next 2 weeks with Indy Road Course and with Watkins Glen, but they have to start thinking about long term. What does that mean for 2024? Legacy moving from Chevrolet to Toyota. I know that Toyota is really high on John Hunter Nemechek, so there were some rumors coming up this last week of John Hunter Nemechek taking the 42 car. So it'll be really interesting to see what happens in 2024. And going from there, I really wish the best for Noah, but unfortunately, it's just a really hard spot to be in. And I hope that he learns from this, and I hope that he can improve from this moment. But as far as guys going in 2024, Wes, I know that you got some other news coming up in your spot.
I sure do. Kind of, and like you said too, it's coming at a bad time for Noah, just because the team as a whole has definitely gone through a lot of trials and tribulations this year, from everything that Jimmy Johnson's had to battle in his personal life to the struggles of the team just performance wise. So really hope they turned it around. I think Mike Rockenfeller is a good guy to get in the car that can assess it over the next 2 road courses to see how they do. So hopefully he gets some good runs out of that car, and hopefully Noah does take some time to reflect over the next couple weeks. But my news here, so my money stop of the week actually comes in some news that was announced today, which is August 9th. As we're recording this, and that's about Michael McDowell and Todd Gillen both re-signing together. I think that's a perfect money stop, to be honest. 2 guys that have really shown forward trajectory over the course of last year to this year. And I think that we're really seeing a lot more of what Todd Gillen's capable of as a driver. Last year, we saw glimpses of it, but not as much as we have this year. I feel like this year he's running a lot closer to Michael McDowell, but also more competitively, especially with some of the guys up near the front of the field. In those moments, he's really showing what a true talent he can be behind the wheel. So it'll be interesting to see what he can do. Also, I think it's a good move for Front Row because they're not putting another rookie in the car. It seemed like that they were kind of transitioning pretty quick with that other car that Michael McDowell was teammates with. Granted, it would have been good to see another guy to see maybe what could have been done, but I think they're making a good call keeping Todd Gillen in the ride. And then, of course, Michael McDowell is having a career year. Last year was another career year. I mean, he's probably one of the most underrated, maybe the number 1 most underrated driver currently in the Cup Series. He still has a shot to make the playoffs this year, so we'll have to see what he does the next 2 weeks. Kind of opens the door, though, for more comments and concerns about what Zane Smith's going to do. We'll have to see what the career holds for him in terms of maybe being in the Cup Series. Obviously, some rumors about him maybe going to the 10 car, filling in for Eric Almirola if he decides to retire at the end of the year. If that happens, then there might be a seat for him because Ford is pretty high on Zane, and I feel like everybody is. He's an incredible talent. A Truck Series champion, a contender multiple times, and of course, debuted in the Cup Series last year for Chris Buescher at Gateway and finished 17th. So there's hope for Zane Smith, I think, still in the Cup Series. If not, I don't think he's going anywhere in the Ford camp, and I think there's still opportunity for Front Row to maybe expand and get a third charter down the line and maybe pick up Zane Smith if opportunity like that comes along. But that's my money stop of the week. I'll be curious to see, Britt, how you wrap it out.
So my money stop, it's transitioning from one Ford camp that you were talking about to another. And it's kind of been building this whole year. It's the resurgence of RFK, where we've seen now back-to-back wins for the first time for Roush since, what was it, 2011? They said on the broadcast or something like that, some early 2010s. Right. This is and overall this season, this is the best results we've seen out of Roush since the early 2010s. So they've had their resurgence. And it's been building because it's been since Brad Keselowski came over to the team and really helped rebuild that culture, right? And I had heard something somewhere that when he came in, it was something like the walls were all there was a bunch of stuff on the walls in the garage, and they needed to redo the floors and everything, and it was all kind of like beaten down and broke down like a team that was performing how they were, like they were a mid-pack team at the time. He comes in, he was like, yeah, let's repaint everything, let's get everything fixed up here and it'll translate out there. And that's kind of the culture thing that he seems to have brought in, is the fact that since he's come in, it just seems like they're more upbeat. It seems like they expect to run up front. And when you start expecting to run up front, you're going to run up front, right? And you put in the time, the effort, the money, the things that you need to do to be a successful race team, and it's going to happen. It's been building all year, because both the 17 and the 6 were really secure on points even before the 17 went and won 2 back-to-back races at 2 completely different tracks. So that team seems like it has it figured out. And could we see a champion from RFK, whether it be Busher or Keselowski? See, last week I was leaning a lot towards Keselowski, because he's got that experience. He's a champion already. He knows how to run the table in the postseason, right? But Busher is getting hot right now, and he's getting hot at the right time, right about when you need to start marking off those top 10s, those top 5s, those wins, right when you need to get into that groove to be a championship contender, like a real threat for the championship. Chris Busher is hitting his stride right now. So could we see an RFK champion in the future? I think it's possible, right? Then that's something we haven't said from the Roush camp probably since Carl Edwards and Matt Kenseth were there, right? They haven't been up there championship contenders since 10 years ago, right? So big resurgence from RFK, and I could quite definitely see one of those cars landing themselves in the Final Four and having a shot at a championship.
Last week made me look like a fool with what happened Sunday. I had predicted Chase Elliott to make the playoffs on points with relative ease, and now looking at him, it's almost basically must win now. And I said Chris Busher has no shot at making the round of 8, really, and he goes out and wins again. So, I mean, I guess whoever I'm talking good and bad is they're going to do the opposite. I might be the jinx of the Four and Fuel podcast here now.
All right, say that Denny Hamlin is going to win every single race for the rest of the year.
Oh man, I don't know about that. He's definitely not winning the Indy Road Course. That's just not going to happen for him.
Hey,
No.
You never know. You never know.
He does have 2 poles in a row on road courses. He's not doing 3 in a row though. That's just asking way too much for Mr. Denny Hamlin. But anyways, speaking of Chase Elliott, Steve, I want to know what you're thinking about Chase Elliott and Alex Bowman. Honestly, both cars are running up in the top 10. I thought they both had a shot, really. Chase was a little early, but Bowman really had the speed this week, and I'm curious what you're thinking on their 2 ends and how this shapes up for them.
Yeah, we saw, tire issue for Chase, and his day was done pretty early. But Bowman, he was out there leading laps, looked really good. His car looked really good with the Detroit Pistons on there, and just got caught up in a wreck on the backstretch, and unfortunately ended his day. So as we're looking at the playoff bubble, Bowman 44 below the cut line and Elliott 55 below. So both of these guys have to, they're essentially in must wins, unless something crazy happens. But we can pretty much call them must wins now. Elliott, we know, is a really good road course racer. Bowman isn't the best, I'd say. So I would say Bowman's only shot really is going to be Daytona, which he doesn't have a great track record at. Elliott could win one of the road courses, but I, again, just don't see it happening. I think there are guys that are hitting their stride a little bit better right now other than that 9 team, and unfortunately, I don't see either one of these guys making the playoffs. I think it's only going to be 2 cars from the Hendrick camp, being Kyle Larson and William Byron, that make the playoffs, and that's unfortunate because that's not the standard that we're used to seeing from Hendrick. We're used to seeing all 4 guys win multiple races a year and all 4 guys being in the playoffs and making deep playoff runs. But unfortunately, I think it's only going to be Kyle and William making the playoffs this year.
Has that happened to only 2 Hendrick cars? I feel like there's always been 3. I can't recall a year where there's been less than 3 in the playoffs.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. You go back to the late 2000s.
Oh, maybe 2010. And 2010,
Yeah,
'cause I don't think Junior made it. That was one of his really bad years. And Mark Martin, I don't think made the chase either.
Yeah, you look at 2010, 2011, Mark Martin was fading out. He wasn't horrible, but he barely missed a Junior those years. Like we talked about the Blaney fan, praying for them. And those years you needed to pray for those Junior fans because those were some horrendous years for Junior. So yeah, I mean, but we're talking, gosh, we're going back, 11, 13, 14 years, something like that.
Mhm.
So it's been a long time. And that's when you look at a powerhouse like Hendrick Motorsports, there are high expectations that come along with that. And unfortunately, that's just how 2023 is shaking up. Now, not always to their doing because Elliott and Bowman both missed multiple races. Bowman was hit with a point penalty. So it's not like this has been their whole season, but this is where we're at now.
But if Chase Elliott misses this by 40 or less points, it's all on Chase Elliott. Well, his actions at Charlotte would be the thing that caused it. Because you look at that happened in stage 2. There was still a couple more stages of that race to get more points. And then obviously Chase Elliott, you got to think he's finishing 10th to 15th. So there's, 30 points he left on the board. And then he misses all of Gateway. So there's another at least 20, 30 points sitting just right there. So if he misses this by even 50 or less, it's really on that one move he decided to pull at Charlotte.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and going back to how long it's been since Hendrick didn't have 3 cars in the playoffs. Yeah, I think that you can attest that to the parity that this new car has brought too, right? Because I mean, everyone's talking about it's the second year, playing field's kind of leveling out, which you're seeing. You're not seeing a lot of back markers up front as much, or like contending for top tens and everything like you were last year. But for the upper echelon of teams, it's not just a runaway for like Hendrick and Gibbs, the same way that it was with the Gen 6 car, right? We're seeing a lot more, like we were talking about RFK, and we're seeing a lot of different drivers be able to compete and get themselves in on points to the likes of which we haven't seen recently. It's been a lot of just Hendrick and Gibbs, and you sprinkle in a Penske there every once in a while. But this new car seems to the playing field, as much as we want to talk about it, the gap widening because it's single source parts, because of all that. Because of the cars are basically all equal absent of setup. It's the playing field is still very, very level for those teams that have enough money to invest into the R&D that is more simplified now than it's ever been.
Yeah, so I obviously the parity, everything with this car since the beginning of last year, you're just not seeing a team go out there that I don't know how long it's going to be before we see someone win 10 races again in the season. I'm not sure how it's going to happen. Truex looks like he could do it, but then he has off weeks and other teams step up. So interesting what's going to happen the next 3 weeks. We could have 3 new winners. We could have some repeat winners. I don't see anyone winning multiple races the next 3 races. I think we're going to see 3 different winners the next 3 weeks, whether that's people that have already won or a new winner this season. But that's what makes it interesting, and I'm sure that's what NASCAR was looking at when they made this schedule, these last 3 races before the playoffs. Now, moving into, still in Michigan, aerodynamics and causing wrecks. We hadn't seen this with this car, really. Drivers getting to the inside of cars and getting loose. And that's something you saw all the time with the Gen 6 car, or really any car before the next gen. You get to the inside, someone puts their door right on you, and crowd, pinches you down, and you're going around. And we hadn't seen that with the next gen car. Really, the cars just got tight, and the outside guy, by doing that, would almost hurt himself because the inside guy would get so tight, it would push the outside guy up into the wall. But we saw Kyle Busch happened to him. Ryan Blaney cut right down on him, and Busch got loose and spun out. That was eye-opening. Then you see William Byron. That was all kind of by himself. Not sure exactly the cause on that one. He might have just overstepped the line, trying to get stage points at the end of the second stage. And then you had Christopher Bell lose it on the inside of Alex Bowman from the lead. Now, with Christopher Bell, this has been a common occurrence with him over the summer. He has been spinning out a lot. And that's something that's going to have to be cleaned up. I can't believe he's fourth in points. He just has not had the speed he had at the end of last year, and even the beginning of this year. In the beginning of the season, he was red hot, and he got that win at Bristol, and you thought, man, Christopher Bell might be legit this year. Ever since then, he hasn't finished in the top 5. So, interesting
He could be.
enough.
It could be just totally speculatory right now, but he could be pushing things, trying to figure things out for the playoffs. Of course, you can always add in. You always want stage points once you're locked in. Could be trying different things. There's a lot of different reasons why that could be happening. It could just be a summer slump that he's going through, because it's happening to William Byron too. So it could be that, or it could be a multitude of things. I'd like to lean to the side if he's pushing a lot harder, because he has like less to lose because he's locked into the playoffs. So at that point, you can push it and try and see what you can get out of the car and kind of test for different things that are going on in the playoffs that you might encounter. But that's one man, speculating.
And we saw this from Christopher Bell and the 20 team last year. As they went through the summer, they kind of hit this little lull, and then once they hit the playoffs, especially when they had their back up against the wall and had must wins 2 rounds in a row with the Roval and then Martinsville, and they won both of those, it proves that they can do it. But I don't know, just something about the summer stretch, like what Bert said with William Byron, they go through the same thing. And then just something about the playoffs, they just take it to the next level and they become championship contenders. So weird to see, but I don't think they're completely out of it yet.
And I feel like a lot of these guys this season, 3 guys come to name, it's checkers or wreckers. It's Bell, it's Kyle Busch, and it's Kyle Larson. They're either spun out into the wall or they're running up for the win. There's just no in between with these guys. And with these playoffs, I feel like they're costing themselves a lot of playoff points. This gap from 5th to 12th in points is 27 points. That is the difference between 6 playoff points and nothing. You finished 11th in points. That's as good as finishing 30th in points right now with a win. So these guys just need to get it hunkered down. The 19 and the 11 have been very consistent, and it's showing they've run away with first and second in the points. That's probably what it's going to end up being, unless Truex would have to have the ultimate, like he'd have to finish last the next 3 races to not be top 2, and Hamlin would have to really fall off here in the next couple of weeks as well. So consistency is what's going to get you to the championship 4 throughout these playoffs, and having those extra playoff points is going to be big. Truex is going to have over 30. Hamlin's going to have 20 something. And then the rest are going to be in the teens, and it's just going to be grouped up. And as we saw last year at Martinsville, every point mattered. Denny Hamlin could have had a couple spots somewhere, anywhere in a stage throughout the season, and he would have been the championship 4 and not Ross Chastain. So he knows how important it is, and everyone needs to get on it, because that 5th through 12th is just insane. 27 points. You're 23 races down, and a group like that is separated by 27 points. Just that's something to watch for too. I know no one's really talking about that, but that needs to be brought to the attention. I think TV needs to do a better job at talking about the regular season standings.
It's hard to, I completely agree with you in that they do need to talk about the regular season, but it gets tricky because we talk about the playoff grid, and what's 1st to 16th look like, but it never gets brought up about regular season points until we get to the end of the regular season. And oh, by the way, here's our regular season champion. But they never talk about how do you get to that point. And then it can be confusing for casual fans, guys and gals who don't tune in every week like us, like we guys do. But it can be tricky because, well, why is this guy, 4th on the playoff grid, but he's 13th in regular season points? How is that a thing? So I agree with you in that they need to have better coverage, but NASCAR and the TV broadcast needs to do a better job of explaining why do these regular season points matter? Why does finishing 6th in the regular season versus 11th benefit you in the playoffs?
Absolutely. Now, Wes, I want you to talk about a little bit about the road course ringers coming in here to Indy Road Course this week.
It's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to have 6 guys that typically don't race in the Cup Series make their appearance. Of course, we're going to see Shane Van Gisbergen back in the Cup Series. This will be his 2nd start. He's also going to be racing at Lucas Oil Raceway, which is IRP in the Truck Series. So he's going to have a little bit of practice. Obviously, a completely different course, completely different track, but he's going to have a little bit of extra time just behind the wheel to get comfortable and prepared for, a weekend of racing ahead. So he'll be driving once again for Trackhouse. We're going to have Jensen Button back under the Rick Ware Racing machine at the number 15. Obviously, he did pretty good in the Chicago Street Course race. And then I think he started at COTA and did fairly well, but maybe not the best. Finished somewhere in the low 20s. But it'll be nice to have him back. A teammate of his is going to be Andy Lally in the 51. I think Andy's a little bit past his prime from where he used to be. I think that had he been more competitive in better equipment 10 years ago, he'd be a guy we talk about contending for wins. But I still think that he could finish, maybe top 20 if the cards kind of play the right way for him, because he's a really competitive driver. And of course, he's got that teammate in Button that's going to help him kind of, they're going to have good collaboration, especially with, the road course knowledge and what they can prepare for in the weeks leading up or the days now. We'll see Mike Rockenfeller, of course. We mentioned him filling in for Noah Gregson over the next 2 weeks. So he'll be in the 42 Legacy Motor Club 42 Chevy. So it'll be nice to see what he can do. Another really talented driver. We only got to see him, I guess, at Watkins Glen last year, and his race ended pretty prematurely. So it'll be good to have a new face. Like we mentioned earlier, they'd been struggling a little bit this year. Maybe he's a guy that can turn the tides for the team and, really show up and put a good performance together. Other than that, we've got Kobayashi, who's going to be driving for 2311. Kamui won, I think he won 2 Rolex 24s, incredible endurance racer. They talked about it. We heard the rumors and the rumblings that he is incredibly quick. And for that to be said by some guys like Tyler Reddick, Denny Hamlin, Dale Earnhardt Jr., I mean, there's a chance he could be a race-winning contender when we get to the racetrack on Sunday. So if he is competitive for the win, I wouldn't be surprised. I don't think we should be surprised with the parity of this car and the fact that we saw Shane win just a few weeks ago at Chicago. So there's an opportunity for him. There's also the opportunity for Brody Kostecki, who's going to be driving for Richard Childress Racing. He's been doing a lot of sim work for the team throughout this year for Richard Childress, and I think that that's really helped Kyle Busch as well as Austin Dillon kind of prepare for the weeks leading up to these road courses. And of course, he has done a lot of the rallycross and supercross with Shane down in Australia, so he's got the experience too. It's going to be interesting to see what he can do with a guy and a rival that he's really built up with this year in the 2023 series down in Australia. So just a lot to look forward to. It's going to be interesting to see who's going to be able to perform the best and how these guys are going to fall in comparison to the rest of the field who's competing for the playoffs.
Now, Wes, who is going to be the biggest competitor in stopping Kobayashi, right?
It's going to be up in the air.
It's going to be his pit crew.
It's going to be the pit crew. That's 100% true because we definitely know that those 23 XI drivers have not had the best pit crews this year. So it's going to be
Because
disappointing.
you're looking 3
Yeah.
weeks in a row. I mean, if 2 weeks ago it was Bubba's pit crew that threw him out of the race. Yeah, this week it was Reddick's crew that threw him out of the race.
Right.
So if the top two crews can't get the job done, what makes you think this backup third string crew is gonna do? I mean, they might just have to put fuel in the car and say, you're racing the same tires the whole day, buddy. Like you're gonna have to make it work."
I will
The
say
biggest-
if Kobayashi has good pit stops this week, they are 100% either going to put that crew on the 23 or the 45 because they got to try something. They got to throw something at those cars because neither crew, they already tried flipping them, right? And they sucked anyways. So you just got to throw something at those pit crews come playoff time because that is the teams are not championship caliber right now.
And the reason I think that Shane was able to be so competitive and win at the Chicago Street Course race, not only because of his driving ability, was because his pit crew exceeded expectations. Obviously, it was a third string. I don't remember who or how they got that organized in terms of who was going to be servicing the car, but you look at Trackhouse and Ross Chastain and Daniel Suarez have 2 of the top 10 pit crews right now. So I think that kind of showed what was capable for Shane to win that race. It's going to be hard for Kamui, especially when it comes down to those pit stops. So it'll be interesting to see how it all cycles out.
I think 2311 would, if this weekend goes poorly for their pit crews, I think they would rather start picking fans from the stands to pit crew the car, and maybe that goes better for them.
Honestly, they should put. We might have to prepare. We might have to get on. We'll be changing tires for them.
I call dibs on the windshield tear off.
Oh man. Well, while we're talking about Indy Road Course, let's go into the Foreign Fuel race picks this week. By virtue of our championship picks last week, I was the only one to pick a driver that wouldn't even finish in the top 5 at Michigan, William Byron.
And you're going to do it
35th.
again.
Well, it would be a really big letdown if the guy I'm picking finishes 35th this week with the expectations he has now. And that is the number 91 of Shane Van Gisbergen. SVG is going to go back-to-back starts in the Cup Series and win again and will solidify his full-time Cup ride next year.
I like it. It's a good pick. It'd be hard to not go against the guy that's 1 for 1 and literally a 100% win rate because there's only like 3 or 4 drivers that have 100% win rate in the Cup Series.
I will say the main difference between the Chicago Street Course and the Indy Road Course is I don't think Shane Van Gisbergen has ever seen anything like what turn 1 is going to be like on lap 1 of that race. It's going to be like who was it? I think Jordan Taylor at Coda was just like, he was like, what is going on? Because they're going in there 8 wide trying to just knock each other out of the way, and that's how Indy Road Course has been so far. So I don't see it changing anytime soon. That's the only difference I see between this and his last start.
Say that is interesting. This will be his first time doing double file restarts. They were all single file at the Chicago Street Course, so that'll be interesting. The restart box is moved back before the final corner, which they might not pile it up as bad in turn 1, but they might pile it up before the restart zone, because if you're starting in the 6th row on back, you're going to be in the middle of the turn or before the turn when leaders are getting going.
Yeah, but it doesn't seem like it was very well thought out.
Yeah, like before we started recording here, like what you were saying, Dom, if in the oval turn 1, if they could just skip that chicane and just do the big sweeping turn, what is traditional turn 1, like they do with the Charlotte Roval, that would make it 10 times better. But the fact that some of these guys are still going to be braking and turning into the corner while the leaders are taking off, it makes zero sense. I don't know who in NASCAR thought that this is a good idea, they do not need to be planning restart zones anytime soon.
And it's just the fact that they could change lanes whenever now. Once you hit that restart zone, you could just change your lane wherever. So this is just it's gonna be a mess. This is gonna be just as bad, if not worse, than Joey Logano punting it down 7 wide in a turn 1 last year.
Oh, and we have Allmendinger and Briscoe looking to win.
In must-win situations.
And don't forget how competitive they've been here, but also how aggressive and last year they were called out for what they were doing. We got to be ready. Just real quick, I'll throw out my pick while I've got the mic here. I'm going with a driver that has finished, I guess, top 10, 8 consecutive road courses in a row. That might be a modern season or modern era record. I don't know how close he's getting, but if he gets, I guess, this week, this would make number 9. If you don't know who I'm talking about, he caught on fire last year and somehow still finished top 10 after getting out of the race car on pit road, which is unbelievable despite everything that happened. He's also the most recent winner and a 2-time winner this season, back-to-back. Of course, I'm talking about Chris Buescher. I mean, Buescher is incredible at road courses. The fact he's got all this momentum in his corner, I mean, he has so much room right now to be aggressive and push the envelope, kind of like we talked about for all the winners, but him in particular, I mean, he didn't expect to win 2 in a row. I don't think that many people ever expected him to win 2 in a row, especially where RFK was last year versus this year. So I think Buescher has a really good chance for the 3-peat and to be the first driver, I guess, to do it in probably 2 or 3 years.
All right, so on to my pick. Okay, I'm going against all the trash I was talking to the 2311 pit crews earlier, but I think just off of straight up pace, he won it last year. I think he'll do it again. I think Tyler Reddick pulls it out. I've got to hope and pray and cross my fingers and knock on wood and do everything that I can to hope that they can get through a couple of pit stops without absolutely trashing his race. But he was just, he got the pole last year. He led a frick ton of laps, right? He was the dominant car. And I don't think that was just the RCR car. I think that was just Tyler Reddick is a really good road racer. If they can put if they can put a car under him and put 4 tires on it a couple of times through the race, I think that just on speed, he will be able to dominate again and get his win at Indy Road Course back to back. So I think that Tyler Reddick will be able to get it done this weekend. Asterisk if his pit crew will actually, put 4 tires and fuel in it in under 20 seconds.
Well, we talk about all these road course ringers and all these guys coming in for one-offs or 2 weeks. But we don't talk about the guy who runs the entire season, a guy who has won at the Indy Road Course before, the very first year, and who is below the cut line and needs to win. And I'm talking about AJ Allmendinger. And this team, I mean, is only 24 points back. I think he's going to get a ton of stage points in this race. But I think he's also going to win and get his spot into the playoffs. So I think AJ Allmendinger will win and be a 2-time Indy Road Course winner.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to watch. Obviously, a lot of headlines to look forward to in this race, the playoff bubble, the road course ringers, potentially the final race on the Indy Road Course, as rumors are they are going back to the Oval next year. Love to hear that. Need to bring the prestige back to the Brickyard. And for the 30th anniversary, what better way than going back to the Oval? All of that developing this weekend. Also, we didn't talk about it, but you got the truck playoffs starting at IRP. You also got SVG, like Wes said, racing there. And then the Xfinity Series at the Indy Road Course. So, and I think IndyCar is there right this week. So you got an action-packed weekend in the Indianapolis area. If you're going, have fun. It's a great facility. I want to get there one day. and then come back next week. We'll break it all down, talk about Watkins Glen. Hopefully Steve is gonna have a good week with the new baby.
I hope so. Keep me in your thoughts.
Everyone, I hope you all enjoyed. Give us a like, follow, review, everything to help us out. Follow us at Four and Field Podcast on Twitter. I'll drop all our handles below. Everything you need to know is right here on the Four and Field Podcast. Thank you all for listening. Enjoy the races, and we'll see you next week.